In the previous video, we started our application, installed some dependencies, created a lot of models and some components that we think it's the most important ones, at the base of our chess application. And we drew our board with their squares on the screen. We had to invert them according for playing as white, playing as black. And now here we have, very simple, but is our board nonetheless. This notation that is being printed on the screen, we have a function called convert column notation, which, if we look, it's not the best, right? As always, as good developers, we should always look for places in our code that we can refactor, make it better. So instead of creating this switch, I want to use a map to map one of each of these values to this. Instead of doing the switch, we're just going to have one variable, which I'm going to call column notation, to be an object. This object will have one property called 0, and the value of this property 0 is a. This is basically an array. If I repeat this, let me go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we're going to return B, C, E, F, G, H. And instead of creating this convert column notation function, we're just going to use the column notation in the position of square column. Simple as that. And then now this, it's not needed anymore. And we refactor all of this into this. We do have a TypeScript problem though, of course, because this column notation could be something else. Here we're just giving a lot of numbers to strings. So I'm going to call this a record of number to string. And now our TypeScript problem is gone, and we have this column notation, which is much cleaner solution than what we had before. And if we need to add, it's not a new case, not add 2 or 3 lines more, just one line here, each position to its column. Okay, come back to application, see that everything is the same, no changes in there. And now it's time for us to start drawing our squares, not just with their coordinates, but with some background color. Let's go then to Tailwind, go here for colors. Background colors, if I'm not mistaken, background color. Here we have, and if already used Tailwind before, you see that we have plenty of options. In general, chessboards, they will use the white in a bit of a brownish, like so, to give the background for the dark pieces, the dark squares. It could use something like BG Orange 900 or 950, depends. Some are modern, we use green, blue, or give plenty of different themes that we can use. But one thing for sure, we're going to need the white, or like let's say neutral, or maybe something very, very white, like slate 50, that is not precisely white, could also be. Let's check it out and see how it works for them. Here inside here, I'm going to create this div to have a class name. Page is slate. It's not completely white. Don't know if you can see in the video, but for me it's very clear the difference. It have a light gray background, and I think I prefer the white per se. So I'm not going to use. I'm going to use here white. Yes, or then PG orange 950. We said it's a bit too dark, maybe. Let's give it a bit less. Let's say 700. Yeah, let's go with this. And of course, we can always improve later on. What we need to do now is define which class should be used for each position. So here we have A1 to H8, and we know that they should be black, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. If you're used to chess, you know that A1 and H8, they are dark squares, and A8 and H1, they are light squares. And they're alternated, right? So if this one's a dark square, these two are light, which means these three, they're dark, and these four, they're light. How can we convert this notation then to dark or light? A1 is the column 0, row 0. B1 it's row 0, column 1. C2 is row 0, column 2. If you see the pattern keep on going, it means that whenever we have a sum of row plus column being an even number, so 0 plus 0, 0 plus 2, 0 plus 4, 0 plus 6, means it's a dark square. While whenever it's an odd number, it will be a light square, so 0 plus 1, 0 plus 3, 0 plus 5, 0 plus 7. Up to here, which is 7 plus 7, 14, which is an even number, so this is a dark square. This one will be 13, which means light square. This can be easily done here than in our square service. Let's create a new function called isLightSquare, receiving, of course, a square model, returning a boolean, and we're going to return square dot column plus square dot row. This will give us a number that divided by 2 equals 0. So if this number divided by 2 is 0, it's a light square because it means it's an even number. If the result is not, it's not to be 0, there is to be an even number here, then this is a dark square. Now we can use this here in our class name. Let me give it here, is light square, that means imports, sending square. The background will be bg color white. Otherwise, oops, wrong. bg color white, bg color, bg orange, 700, and here it's not, it's just bg white. Can refresh here, see that just A1 got correct because I did division. I wanted module, not the division. And now see that it's inverted. So this one should be dark. Just see different from 0. There you have it, dark squares and light squares. Does it make sense? We put all of them together and see if the rest of the division from column and row is different from 0, then it's a light square because it means it's an odd number. If it's equal to 0, then it's a dark square because, of course, it's an even number. And with this, we simply paint our board with the correct colors. Of course, if you want to choose a different color, I don't like this brownish orange here much, but maybe I'll change. But for now, they're fine. And as you may have noticed, these as of now, they're not squares. They are rectangles. Let's head back to our code then. Instead of giving a width and a height to the squares themselves, I prefer to give this section, which is the board, a specific width and height. Then the squares will adjust themselves automatically. I think it makes more sense and it helps to avoid creating a lot of classes here into the square itself. So now we can say that the width may be 3/4, 75% of the screen, something around this looks fine. And I don't remember what is the class that we use for aspect ratio, but what we want is aspect square. So now we set here aspect square, and we have everything perfect. Okay, now we have a square, which is our board. And the squares themselves, they still don't use the whole height and width. Let's fix that right away by giving the width full height, full classes. There you have it, they're fine here, perfect. And now we give the same classes here in the square. So I'm going to transform this in a template literal and add these classes as well. So height full, width full. That's our squares. We can then center everything. Use this, the label, put it in the center. So that's where our icons would be. But I don't want to do that, as I want to keep the coordinates, or at least in certain squares, for example, the first ones of each. So here the H, the first row and the first column, to keep the numbers and also the letters if needed. And I don't want to center the text because of that. And for this reason, I'm keeping this as is. And what we can do is to fix here our board, put it in the center of the screen. And here, okay, we have grids, have aspect square. I'm going to also add a margin top, maybe, or just directly margin, margin on the X auto and margin Y. I'm just going to add 2 to give a bit of space. See here, section, maybe a bit more. Let's give it a bit more. Let's give it a 4. Okay, yeah, I like that. And let's put also a border. I have a small border, which looks fine, just to give it a bit of separation from the rest of the screen. And we can also use maybe a box shadow. I don't remember how to do it with Tailwind, so I'm going to check here the documentation. Just can say shadow. Okay, perfect. Easy enough for me. And yeah, looks good. This is our chessboard. Next up, let's add some pieces then to our board. And for that, I'm going to use Font Awesome, because I know they have chess pieces as icons, but most likely there are plenty of them out there. I'm going to here search the icons and just go for chess. I want only the free ones. As you have here, chess, chess rook, chess queen, and even some alternatives. So the ones that are filled, which they call the solids, and also the regulars. Up to check which ones do we want. Maybe we want the outlines, maybe not. We're going to see. In any case, we're going to need a kit. And if you don't know how to create a kit, it's quite simple. Just create an account, create your kit. And in this kit, which mine is this one, it's the only free kit I can have, so it's just one. You copy paste this into your index HTML. Let's put it here. And now I can use all the icons from Font Awesome inside our application, just using how they tell us to do. So I'm going to say here chess rook, for example, with this. Copy it, going to bring to our square, and I'm going to put it here just to see the result. Class, of course, it's a class name. And here we have plenty of rooks all over our board. Simple, but we know that our icons are working. We have, of course, more than this. Icons, we have chess rook, chess queen, chess pawn, and so on. So let's create here in our piece model. We have here export type. We have already the pawn. So I'm going now for our service, which I'll call piece service. Yes. Export const get piece icon. I'm going to receive, of course, a piece of type piece model, and going to return a string. This string, it will be this icon, just like we put it there in our square. So I have here a square. See that it's FA solid, FA chess rook. So I'm going to bring this here, say return FA chess rook, not minding as of now, forgot the arrow function, not minding of now the piece, but we're going to get there in a second. Just want to update this class name to be the one being brought by the service. Oh, a bit harder. This icon import sending then is square dot piece. And we're only going to show this icon, of course, if this square has a piece. Otherwise, we don't want to show the piece that is on the square, right? It only makes sense. And in our piece service, we're going to use the same idea of what we did in the square service, a map, mapping the possible types of piece to a specific value. Here in the piece service, let's say const piece icons, we'll have what is our, let me get here the piece model, we have the piece type. So let me import it as well, the piece type. And I'm going to use this piece type as property for our piece icons, and then use just the piece value coming from here. So we can say that the piece type, I'm going to get there, piece type dot rook, for example, is FA chess rook. But how do we add this inside this object? we're going to simply use the brackets notation. Simple like that. And now we can repeat this for all the others. So pawn, knight, bishop, queen, and king. Getting, of course, the classes from here. So chess rook, chess queen, chess pawn, everything is quite obvious, but we need to specify. Bishop, queen, and king. And now this return, it's simply checking piece icons, piece. I didn't export this. Let me see our piece model. Yeah, it's a private type. Or this type that you have it. Now all the pieces will have their certain icons, but in our board, when we create the squares, we didn't add any pieces. So we started our board, but we didn't start our game. Let's add it then. Here, when you're creating this square model, let's open here the square model. See that we already added the piece, which is not a read-only, and we have the set piece here function. In our board model, then, let's just make use of that. Const square equals this new square model is square.set piece. For now, I'm just going to create a new piece model. This piece model needs to receive, what does it need to receive? A piece type and a piece color. So let's send this to it. Piece type. Import this first. For now, I'm just going to say a pawn because we're going to try the rook. So I'm going to say the rook and player color going for white. So everything is for the white as of now, and just add this square. As you see, I'm adding the same white pawn on each and every square. Let's go back to our application, refresh, and see that we have here the pawns. Everything is fine. They are black because I didn't paint them according if they are white or black pieces. And you see that, okay, they are where they are meant to be. We need to now, of course, only add the pieces that are really needed. The 8 pawns, 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 1 queen, 1 king in the correct square for each of the players. And inside this folder, we create initial piece positions. And this piece, let's say here, initial piece positions, export const, it will be an array. This array is big with a lot of objects specifying the rules for this whenever we set a piece. And then inside our border model, we're just going to check if the rule applies for these initial positions. And with that, we create this piece model. Let's then understand what we need to bring from here to here and how. First of all, let's create an interface. The interface will be piece position. And here, this piece position will have a row, which will be a number, right? We'll have a column, which can be a number. And we'll have the type, piece type. It will be, as you can imagine, of type piece type, and the player color. It will be of type player color. Each piece position will have that. The row and the column can to not exist. For example, we can say that this piece position for the row 1, but no matter the column, will be this for this player, just like we did here for our pawns here, both pawns. Instead of defining that, we'll say for row 1, column 1, for row 1, column 2, and so on, we're just going to say for row 1, without any columns, our system, our application will understand this means that for all the columns in this row, it will be the same piece type. Okay, and now with this piece position interface, we can say this is an array of piece position and add a lot of rules here. So for row 1, column, we don't care. Piece type will be of piece type dot pawn. Player color layer color dot white. So for row 1, just like we did here before, it will be the fonts of white. And then we're going to do the same for the fonts of black. Let me add it here. Row 6, layer color black. Some commas. I'm going to add some comments here saying white, black, so just can distinguish both of them. And now we're going to say for row 0, I'm going to even put it up. No, that rooks, but now only if column is 0 or column is 7. Make sense? We do the same for the other pieces. Row 0, column 1, row 0, column 6, we have the knights. Now, row 0, column 2, we have a bishop, and column 5 as well. Column 3, we have the queen, or column 4, we have the king. See how this makes sense? We do the same now for the black. I'm going to copy all of this, just put it here, and replace these zeros by 7. Rename all of these whites for black. Black, 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 and black. And we have here the rook, the knight, the bishops, and the queen. Could we improve this? We can. We could say that these rows and columns could be an array. So now we'd say that the rook is a column 0 and 7. Let's do that. Remove this from here and say it's an array of number for both of them. We're going to say 1, 0, and now columns 0 or 7. Delete this. Here the same for row 1 and 6. Delete this. Delete this. Have here 2 and 5. And now have here the column 3. Okay, it's the one we have. And for the king, the column 4. Remove even further our specifications and amount of lines that we need here in the initial piece positions. We just need to now add the column, which will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for all the columns. Rename this to rows and columns because now it's an array. So really quick, do this here. And do the same for the other one. See that several times we're just going to update stuff all the time. We're here, now change this 6, we did something, think a bit better, okay, now we can improve this, we do it. Row 7, and this is player black. Nice. Okay, always think, in the code that you just wrote, how can I improve this? Can I improve this? Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but think about it. I thought that if we use arrays, it would be better than to not use it. So like this, it's very clearly specified all the pieces that will start. We'll fetch this here in our board model. I'm going to create here, so in our constructor, oh, no, because I want to import. Did I export this? I exported this, yes. So import from constants initial piece positions. Okay, that's what we have. Now, if row equals what? The initial piece positions, position 0, let's say, just an example. Rows, my bad, inverted, just an example, includes this row. So if it includes this row, we're going to add the piece that it's here, right? Now, instead of just grabbing the first item of the array, we check for all of them. So we have in here for each, say initial or just item to be a bit too big, just going for item. And this item will have then the rows dot includes row if the rows include the row and the columns include the column, square set piece of type what? Of item dot piece type and item dot player color. Remove all of this. Not needed anymore. Now this is the code we have. We don't need to import this neither. Just the piece model and the square model, and of course the initial constant. Come back to our application, I'm going to refresh, and you see that the pieces, they're all in place. The king, the queen, the bishops, the knights, the rooks, and all the pawns. With a simple logic here, just one for each, and then checking everything at once. Creating a structure which defines, a constant which defines where each position should start in. Interestingly enough, we don't need it now, but this piece position can be quite useful for us to use later on in the project to understand where a piece is positioned, where is it located on the board. It's not what we have of now because we have a square which contains pieces. So here I have the square model which contains pieces, and this piece, of course, could exist or not, and then we're going to check if the piece exists, it's in this row and this column. But that could be useful as well. Maybe we even do a bit of refactor here. Not sure. For now, this suffices, but it's good to keep in mind that we can also have an interface like this. Just to finish this part, let's go back to our squares and give them some colors, not just all blacks, because for the white players, this piece should be white, of course. So I'm going to add here another class, which will be depending on the square.piece.color being equal to player color white. If so, I'm going to say text white. If not, text black. With this, we should now have all the white pieces in white, the black pieces in black, but of course, the white pieces completely disappear on the white background. We could say that it's not exactly white, or say that the background is not exactly white as well, but this will also leave problems to a bit of contrast. To improve that, then I want to add a drop shadow on the icon itself, elevating it from the board. And this goes for both the black and the white pieces. If I come here though to our icon and say shadow, just to give a small drop shadow, you see that we have a problem. It becomes a square because it's giving a drop shadow on the element itself and not on the icon, not on the SVG. To fix that, we need to use a filter with a drop shadow instead of just using the drop shadow itself. Because if we inspect this, we're going to inspect. Here, see, shadow is using the box shadow. But as you see, this is not what we are looking for. So I'm going to call this icon shadow and create in the square, I'm going to create here new file, square.css, simple CSS file saying icon shadow. We'll have what? A filter drop shadow, which I think I'm going for 0 pixels, 1 pixel of blur. There's not this Thomas, sorry, my bad. And for now, let's just use black as this filter color. In the square, we import it, import our square CSS. And see that now all of our icons have a small background on it, a small drop on it, and on the icon itself, because we use the filter and not the drop shadow property precisely. The black icons, though, they do look a bit weird now. What if we just add a different filter for them, saying then in white, and say icon shadow white, icon shadow black. Here in our square, we use this icon shadow together with the text white, and here icon shadow inverted. Basically, coming back, we have then our filter on the black pieces, which looks better than what we had before. They're both out of the board and can see them clearly. Even if future you want to also give a bit different background colors to these squares, please feel free to do so. And layout is something that we can always improve. The visuals, we can always be working on it. As of now, I'm satisfied. If in the future I'm not satisfied anymore, I'll just change it. And with that, we stay here for part 2 and see you in the next one.